Hey guys, welcome back to my homestead, and if you're new here, welcome to Esther's Eden. That is my homestead here in North Idaho, and normally I don't preface my videos this way anymore because I've built such a beautiful community here. You guys are getting to know me pretty well, but this video is a little bit special, and the reason that it's unique is because it's a collaboration video with one of my favorite channels. Now, recently I was tagged and sent a video link where Roots and Refuge, Jess Sowers of Roots and Refuge Farm, was putting out she put out her own video talking about, can we get a hold of reliable information anymore? Because there's this thing happening where AI is taking over a lot of things and aspects of life. Now, we're not going to go into that whole subject because honestly, I don't know enough about it. Let's just leave it at that. But I think it's really great that even if this wasn't happening, that Jess is doing this, where we're putting out videos, and she basically called all of the different content creators to put together a video on our favorite homestead books. Now, maybe I haven't really shared this in this capacity before. I have maybe hinted to it, and I definitely did a video last year sometime on my favorite gardening books. But you guys, I love books. I don't know how many books I have. A lot. I have read a lot of books. That's how I started gardening, was reading books and just getting out there and doing it. And something that I really like is books that are practical, that you go back to. So if I have a book and maybe I've read it once or I've checked it out from the library, if I don't keep going back to it, I usually get rid of it. I pass it on to someone who I think could use it more, or sometimes you read a book and it's for a season and then you can get rid of it and get a new book. I don't like to accumulate a lot of things, but putting together a video on my favorite homestead books is like the best topic. I'm so excited about this. So I don't want this to be super long for you. I just wanted to welcome you and kind of preface the reason behind this video. Choosing my favorite homestead books was a little bit challenging for me because I have so many of them, but I decided that I would only put the books on to this video that I have read many times, that I use as resource guides or helpful to me as I kind of go through my homestead journey, and ones that I thought might be helpful to people whether you're in a cold climate or a warm climate. Let's talk about these books that I have. So the first one, this is called Cellaring. This book, I actually think I've ended up with like 3 different copies of it because either I'll lend them out and forget that I actually bought it, or I use it so much that I want to make sure it's on my shelf. This one is awesome because it gives you a lot of different ways of storing vegetables. Now, that's a really important thing, especially in a cold climate where we can only grow things for part of the year. So this is one that has a lot of different suggestions and ways that you can store vegetables in a root cellar and not necessarily in a root cellar, but it gives you some really accurate information on temperatures and humidity levels and designs and what people have done that works and what people have done that doesn't work. I just feel like this is a very practical book if you're wanting to really dive into root cellaring. And you know, I feel like root cellaring is one of those classic homestead things. Like if you don't have a root cellar, it's on your list to build. So anyway, this is one of my favorites. I don't know how many times I've read it, a lot. Another one that I picked is the Herbal Handbook for Farm and Stable. this book is great because it teaches you how to take care of your animals using herbs and really good feeding practices. Feeding practices that are like taken from nature and better in that sense. Now, this copy is a new copy to me because I have lent out my other copy. I think I've also had 2 or 3 copies of this book. I find like when you're in homesteading and there's just people around you and you're building community, a lot of times people will just gift books. And so they might be books that they found helpful, or they might be books that they've just had on their shelf or they used for a period of time or whatever. But this book actually is very special to me because it belonged to my amazing farm friend who recently passed away, and she had my updated version, and this one I actually like better than the updated version. I don't know why, I just do, but now it's even more special to me because it came from her. So she found this book helpful when she was learning to farm and doing that, so that's one of the reasons she passed it on to me. But she also thought it was great that I had a different copy of it, so I had taken this up with me when there was a situation with a goat birth going on, and I just grabbed everything that I thought we might need, and that my copy of the book was the one that I grabbed. So anyway, this is such a good book if you're looking to do things and raise your animals a little bit more naturally. Now, I don't feel like I can do a book list without Nourishing Traditions. I think that this is like the backbone to a homesteader's diet. The way that Sally Fallon has put this book together is like there's information in the front of it. It's like teaching you about our food, and it's so easy to read, but like such good information in it. You can read it pretty quickly, and then the whole second half of the book, well, more than half of the book, is just all these different recipes. Now, for the most part, when you're building out a recipe, ingredients don't really matter so much other than quality, but it's the preparation and how you prepare your meals that matters. And I feel like this book does a very good job of this. I first heard about this book actually from Art and Bree's channel, and I started looking into it, and I believe their channel is called Bree from Scratch now, but they just made it sound so good. And then I had heard of another YouTuber mention it, and then I had seen it mentioned by yet another YouTuber, and then I started looking into trying to ferment foods, and this book kept popping up. And honestly, this is one that I continue to go back to over and over and over again. And I just think that this is like, if you're learning how to eat homestead food and, you know, raise your food and prepare it and preserve it and eat the best foods for you and for your body, then this book is really unmatched. And I've read a lot of nutritional books. I'm going to try to link sources for all of these books. Some of them are very old, and I'm not really sure if you can still get a hold of them. But if I can't find a link for it, and I'll leave that down in the description, then I recommend going and checking out like used bookstores and kind of asking around. You can ask around on Facebook, and sometimes people just have these sitting on their shelf. So this next book is one that was sitting on my father-in-law's shelf. I asked to borrow it, and I read it, and I think I probably read this every year for my first 6 years of gardening. And then I continued to reference back to it, and I still enjoy reading it. Crocketts Victory Garden is really, I don't know, honestly, I don't know why it's my favorite. I can't tell you, other than it still, it has these wonderful pictures in it. I think that it's probably the way that it's laid out. Now, gardening, there's always these tasks that need to be done, and this book lays them out. Let's see if I can find the right page here. Yeah. This book lays them out by month, so they go all the way down, and basically it tells you in each month what the tasks are. Now, the only problem with this book, so like March, you can be planting, you know, your cold crops like peas and whatnot, and it tells you here's the vegetable and here's what you're going to be doing with it. And each month it will mention that vegetable. Every month begins like this, and it tells you what you're planting, what you're thinning, what your transplants are, and what your harvest is. Now, this book is not accurate for our very cold climate. It's at least a month off, and sometimes even 6 weeks off. But you can basically go through it and still follow that, you know, you just adjust your timeline and read through it. It's still more or less chronological for every garden. I love the way it's laid out. I love the tips that it uses. It does not promote organic gardening necessarily, but you can just skip the fertilizer routine in it. Like, you just can ignore that part. Now, I feel like his passion for gardening just comes through this book so well, and the way that it's laid out is quick. It's easy to read it. You can read, you know, a month at a time. You could read a month early and then keep on going with it. But when you're new to gardening and there's so much to do and people have so many opinions on what to do, this book really made it very simple and very much like, oh, I can do this. I can garden and I can grow a lot of different things and keep up on it. And I feel like this book lays it out very, very well. So it's still one of my favorite, even though I have gone way off from following his recommendations. I definitely do my own thing now, but I think if you're a beginner gardener, this is an awesome book. A lot of these books that I have chosen are easy to read and like very much read it and do it. This book that I'm going to mention next is a little bit more textbook style, kind of like reading an old biology textbook. Like, it's a little complicated, and unless you love plants and you're invested in learning it, I don't necessarily recommend this. But if you are trying to learn to save your own seeds and you want to do it accurately and effectively for the long haul, then you've got to have Seed to Seed. This is by far the best seed saving book I've ever read, and it's by Suzanne Ashworth, and I've probably mentioned this book several times on my channel because it is really good. It has all the information in it. It tells you like recommendations. It tells you the different plants. It puts them within their categories. It tells you what is going to cross with what other plant, and really it's just a very good book. It's very well written. And like I said, it is a little bit harder to digest, which means it's a little bit slower of a read, but I highly recommend it. I still go back to this book all the time when I'm wondering. I actually kind of distilled all the information down and I wrote it in like a cheat sheet so that I would know which vegetables cross without having to sift through all the information in this book and all the different varieties, because I don't grow all the varieties that are in this book. But I highly recommend this if you want to start your journey into seed saving. Okay, I have two more. I know she said like do like 5 books, but there's no way. Like homesteading is too big and broad of a topic for that. Now, like I said, I'm trying really hard to stick within my wheelhouse, because I feel like people who are very good at beekeeping, for example, are going to have better books than what I could recommend. I think that there's people who do butchering and things like that who are going to know books that are better. So keep an eye out. These are just the books that I love. My wheelhouse is herbs and gardening and kind of homemaking in a sense, basically like all the food part of homesteading. I really just keep animals to support my plant habit at this point. That's really the main purpose, right? So that's the kind of books I'm trying to recommend to you guys. So I have 2 more books on my list here. And I gotta say, none of these books are necessarily in any particular order, but these last 2 are some of my absolute favorites, solely for their practicality and the versatility that they offer. So they would not just work for me, but they would work for multiple climates. They work for different farms, and it doesn't really matter which scale of homesteading you're doing, these books work really well. So this is by John Seymour, The Self-Sufficient Life and How to Live It. This might be my all-time favorite book, to be honest. I love this book. Now, I was drawn to it because it is true to my heritage, which is English. And so they use a lot of those sorts of methods in this book. But the best thing is the kind of the way that it's laid out is great. It is an easy reader, but it's simple enough that if you're just beginning, it's not too overwhelming. And it's complicated enough that if you're in homesteading already, that it's still very beneficial. So it lays out a garden for you on these pages. I don't know if you guys can see this or not. I'll try and get closer. It lays out the garden, but then it does it for winter and spring, and so all the different seasons, and it tells you what to do in each section. Now, I actually did run a large section of my garden out specifically from this recommendation, and I will tell you, it was the most productive, wonderful rotation system, and I would still do it now if I hadn't changed the layout of my garden. So I probably did this for about 3 or 4 years, and I was very, very happy with it. In fact, it's the reason one section of my garden is still the way that it is based off of this book. The other thing that it does is it gives you how to kind of like an option for setting up a very tiny backyard homestead all the way up to 10-acre plus homestead, and sort of gives you freedom and options within that. And I really love that. This book really was the beginning to me realizing that even in a cold climate like ours, we can still garden and farm year round. Now, I mean, obviously you keep your animals through the winter, but this book really helps you begin to understand you can be productive even in the winter months, and kind of how to do that. It also, this family, they live like a fully self-sufficient life, and so it's teaching you how to do that. Now, that's not necessarily my goal on my farm, but I think that there are so many good moves that you can make toward this direction, and reducing what you're bringing into your farm, and thereby reducing what leaves your farm. And I think that's a really great thing. So it's a very, very informative, good book that can be utilized no matter really what your homestead goals are. And that's what I really love about this. All right, the last one, you can get an updated version, I know you can, of this book, but I actually like the old versions. Have you noticed that? I just realized that. I tend to lean toward the older versions of books. Not really sure why that is. I think sometimes they actually have less filtered information in them, if that makes sense. So this is the Encyclopedia of Country Living, old-fashioned recipe book, but there's not just recipes in this. It's written by Carla Emery, and the cool thing about this one is I believe she was from Idaho. So this is the 9th edition. There's lots. I've actually even seen, I have a friend who has one of the original versions of this book, and it's really cool. It has wooden covers on it instead of just a regular book, which is awesome. And the story of her building this book out is incredible. I love this book because it offers you so many recipes and ideas for, like, let's say you have an abundance of peas. It'll give you a whole bunch of recipes for using peas and very creative things. And so this one has sausage recipes, but there's like, I don't know, more than a half a dozen recipes in here. So I have it tagged dog-eared here because this is the page that I often go to. I made my own notes in pencil in this book. And this was another book that was passed on by my late farm friend, and I'm so thankful that she gave this to me because I have used it so many times. Now it is an encyclopedia, which means it doesn't deep dive on any one subject, but it offers really great information on lots of different subjects. And if you're new to homesteading, or, I mean, even like I said, I've continued to reference in this book, some of my favorite recipes are in here. It's handy to know, like, get new ideas. And to me, in some crazy scenario where we didn't have the internet anymore, I wouldn't have any of my Pinterest things, and that's where I keep a lot of my stuff is up on Pinterest, and it's the pictures and the ideas and whatnot. So this book is a handheld. I can go in this book and get new ideas and start looking at like different animals that I might not have thought of having, or different plants that might do really well in my climate. You know, and this book is not just for a cold climate either. None of these books are. When you think about not having the internet available to you, you know, what kind of things are going to happen? Well, number one, you're going to lose, like most of us are going to lose a lot of our recipes because, well, you're not going to be able to access those. So I have started writing a lot of that stuff down, but when you start making, you know, looking at these books and whatnot, then you can build your favorite recipes out of here rather than always going online. So this has animal care in it. It has growing things in it. It has different recipes. It has butchering. It has, I mean, like all the way down to head cheese. And it's really like the nitty gritty of homesteading, and that's one of the reasons I really like it. So in order to make this video not super crazy long, I'm going to go ahead and cut it off here. You guys, I am always encouraging on this channel to learn and grow. And part of learning is not just reading, it's doing. So these books are amazing and I love them very much, but they're just an extra resource. The real knowledge comes from getting out there and getting in your gardens, getting in your homestead, and just doing the work. And to me, I love having the books, especially because I can't remember all of the information in my mind. I remember a lot of it, but not all of it. And if there came a time when I wouldn't be able to just ask somebody or go online and ask someone there or go online and see what other people are doing, I want to know that I have good resources on my shelf that I can reference if I haven't done it already. Like, I have yet to grow my own grains. I want to do that. So I make sure that I have books that at least can get me started, because if all of a sudden I need to be doing that, I want to know that I have the resources. So I hope that this video has been helpful for you. If you are new here or just hearing about our channel, please hit the subscribe button or like and share our video here. And I'm thankful that you chose to join us here at Esther's Eden. I'll see you guys in the next one. Don't forget to learn and grow.